there, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Class E Podcast. I am your host, Mary Sturgill. Remember, this is the podcast that's brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. And today, I have a very special guest, Martine Helou-Allen, who is the CEO, founder of this wonderful program called RIZE Prevention. Martine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. I better, I got to show up on this podcast with that kind of intro.
You always show up. So let's get started. And I want to talk first about, for people who might not have heard of RIZE, talk to them about what RIZE does.
So just to put it very simply, RIZE focuses on empowering teens to resist drug use and make healthy lifestyle choices. And the interesting thing is that while we're addressing this growing issue of drug use among teens, we also address a whole bunch of other addictive behaviors that are very destructive among youth that they may not even consider addictions or damaging. So we really just care about the whole being, the innate value of every single person on this planet.
I love it that you're setting out to fix one problem, but you're fixing many at one time.
Yes.
So let's dive into, you mentioned the prevalent drug problem. Let's talk about that really quickly. Okay. And I'm going to read this off because I want to make sure that I get these right because they're astronomical. 13 is the average age when students start using drugs. 9 out of 10 addicts say that they started in their teen years, and 72% of students say that they've used a drug before they graduate high school.
Correct.
That's frightening. Drug overdoses in teens has increased 109% in 2022. That's based on the most recent stats.
Yes, that is right.
That gave me goosebumps. It's scary.
Yes, and it's not even necessarily the illicit drugs. Let's talk about prescribed medication that's not being used properly. Yeah. Let's talk about the kids that are overdosing and using antihistamines. Yeah. Okay, they can get those over the counter. Yep. Cough medicine. Yes. Okay, inhalants. During COVID, when kids didn't have access to things, they went to huffing paint again and gas. Yeah. So people have to understand that the issue is not in the supply. Right. There's always going to be an endless supply of something. Yeah. What we're focused on is reducing the demand, which in turn will reduce the supply. Yeah. So I think that in this country, they've been working backwards for quite some time. So we're looking to try and change that.
And this is what I love about what you do, because you are turning that kind of philosophy on its head, really, because it's not been done that way for a very long time.
No, just say no does not work.
We've seen it. We grew up with it. Right. It does not work. So let's talk. This is very personal for you, and I want to talk a little bit about your why. And then after we talk about that a little bit, we're going to dive into exactly what RIZE does and how they go into the schools to make this kind of positive impact on these students. But Martine, if you want to share a little bit of your personal story with us about why this is so important for you to do.
Sure. So every time that I go into schools and I see these kids, I see the ones that have their heads held down, see the ones that just don't look like they're really belonging to the rest of the group. Disconnected. I feel them because that used to be me. Oh. And that was me for many, many years. And it wasn't because it was my fault. It was because of early childhood trauma, sexual trauma, starting at the age of 4. Then I also have a parent, unfortunately, that has bipolar disorder, self-medicated extremely with alcohol, other substances. And then also I got myself into a situation trying to be accepted where I was then raped at age 13. So I had all this trauma that had been building up year upon year. Yes. And I didn't have anybody that really addressed the root causes. Right, of why then I started to destructively self-medicate for many years of my life. And, I just say to myself, thank goodness. I will say this, though. There are wonderful people in my life who believed in me along that path. Right. And so if it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't have gotten a college education. I am a Furman alumni. I'm so proud to have gone to this school. I would not have believed in myself enough to really focus on my academics, knowing that that was my key out of my situation, right? But it still didn't address the root of my personal feelings about myself. The trauma. That's the thing. And so I went many decades not addressing that. And when I finally learned to address that, that's where I got freedom. And so I said, I can't keep this to myself. I've got to go back and talk to all of these younger kids that are where I used to be and speak life and love into them so they don't go down that same path.
Whew, that just made me verklempt and I'm teared up. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, you can see it, but the rest of you will just have to take my word for it. But that, I think you pointed out a couple of things. One, you speak from your personal experience. You are them, right? Or were them. And it's that childhood trauma that a lot of folks are trying to medicate that leads to the addiction, right? And the trauma, I mean, the whole, just whatever you can think of, it ranges from losing a parent to being assaulted to physical abuse, mental abuse, all of those are included in that, right?
And just being rejected.
And, yeah.
How about COVID?
Yeah, and being isolated.
Yes.
That was traumatic,
Very.
you know. So, so how do you you go into the schools? How did you come up with the idea to get connected to students through the schools and develop this program?
Well, being a Furman graduate, I got to understand the importance of research.
Yes.
And doing and doing a lot of reading to figure out what was not being done right and what elements are fundamental to an effective drug prevention program. So, you know, I came to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, which is kind of where this whole thing was birthed, if you would.
Yeah.
And I was working in community relations, so addressing community issues for Greenville County. And that's about the time when the opioid epidemic really started to hit here. Yeah. And so my question was, after reading an obituary that just knocked me off, I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like the pain that was in that from a parent that was sharing that about her daughter losing her life. I said, what are we doing to stop this from happening to more kids and families? Yeah. I couldn't find anything. There was nothing boots on the ground. There was nothing really proactive that was being done in the realm of prevention, i.e. stopping addiction before it starts. And so I started doing a lot of research on what it takes to make a great program. And that's where I came across the research that absolutely validates that it's got to be school-based. Yeah. Because that's when, especially in middle school, right? And that's the window of opportunity, middle school. Because in middle school, they're starting to separate from their family a little bit, want to be autonomous. Well, guess what? Now their family is their peers at school. Right. And so you want to be in the community where the kids identify themselves, right? And that's school. Yeah. So when you go into the school, you have an assembly. I know this much about it. How do you connect with the kids, and what are the kind of the steps that you get them to commit, basically, to be drug-free? Does that make sense? Yes, okay. Yes. You're asking me for the secret sauce. I am. So exactly I'm going to give. Okay, so I'm going to give you the secret sauce without the secret. Okay, right. So it's proprietary information, but we do want everybody to use it. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So really, what it comes down to is I reach them at the heart. Yeah. It is not about just say no. And so when I even go in and I ask them, I said, how many of you today are excited about hearing another Just Say No to Drugs presentation? Yeah. Boo. Right. I'm like, well, that's fantastic, because that is not what this is. Yeah. You know, we are totally different. And I reach them on a heart level because I go in there and I teach them the meaning behind this phrase that I always say. Yeah. We do not have a drug problem in your community. We do not have a drug problem in this country. There's no problem getting drugs wherever you go. You can go online. And I know some of you people who are listening to this are like, what the heck is she saying? Yeah. Explain why you say that. Yes. So you can get drugs wherever you go, not a problem, right? Order them online, have them sent straight to your door. The problem we have is a heart problem. Yeah. It's a hope problem that's being medicated by drugs and other destructive behaviors. Yes. And so when I go in there, I totally change their perspective. I let them know there's a world out there that's targeting you to be the most addicted generation we have ever seen. You are the only obstacle, and your choice is the only obstacle that makes that impossible from happening in your life. Yeah. But they have to understand the connection between drug use and medicating emotional needs that are not being met, medicating trauma that has not been addressed, medicating rejection that they feel, lack of self-esteem, the emotional root of all of that, to get them to understand it's not the what, it's the why. Right. Yes. That's so important too, and because as a society, I think maybe boys a little bit more than girls are taught to kind of push down anything negative, right? Yeah. And women are too, because then we're seen as angry or over emotional or whatever. And but I will say that as we get older, many of us learn to just deal with those emotions head on. But as a preteen and teenager, we don't have the tools for that.
Right.
Well, and that's wonderful. I'm so glad that you said that, because one of the major parts of our program is also working with parents.
Exactly.
To let them understand their role, their very vital role of being a co-regulator with their children.
Yeah.
And now, as you've seen families get further and further apart, they don't come to the dinner table anymore. That used to be the regulator. That it's
Everybody's
on the phone. Right.
Yeah.
And so now young people are not regulating properly,
Yeah.
right? They're all out of regulation. And when our brains get out of regulation, which happens with trauma, which happens with rejection, they want to come back into balance. Well, nowadays, these kids are going to things that are not giving them balance. They're actually throwing them further out of balance. And parents are like, I'm irrelevant. My kid doesn't care. Yes, you are. You absolutely are. But you have to put forth the effort to go and cultivate that relationship between you and your child. And now, who are the co-regulators for today's kids? Their own peers. Their own peers, or social media, or celebrities.
Right.
So I was in USA Today commenting about Snoop Dogg's stunt, his marketing stunt, that says, I'm giving up weed, right? I'm giving up smoke, right? People were so like elated about that. They're like, awesome, this is great. Now he's going to lead this charge to, to do something great. No, it was all a marketing ploy for a smokeless fire pit.
Yeah.
And USA Today did an article about how damaging that was. And in the last portion of that article, I really appreciate the time they gave me to talk about this. Celebrities' words carry weight.
They do. Yeah.
Their actions carry weight. And our kids are very celebrified,
Yes.
okay, in their view of life, what they want to accomplish, their dreams, who they want to be like, right? And so we have to start understanding that these kids are co-regulating with things that are not beneficial to them.
Right.
And parents have got to step back in.
Right.
Mentors have to step in. And that's what my program, RIZE, does.
I love that. How many schools are you going into now? Because it's grown tremendously since, when did you start the program?
June of 2021.
Yeah, so in the last 3 years, it's grown tremendously.
Yes, so the first year we had only 5 schools. And then the second year we moved up to like 10 schools, or 8 schools actually. Then we're at 14, and now next year we'll be at 20.
Yeah.
So we just keep on growing and growing. And what we love about our growth is that it's organic. It's about, it's administrators telling other people, advocating for us. This program is changing our school. It's changing our kids.
Right.
And more than that, it's that we do what we say we're going to do. If we say we're going to show up for your kids, we're going to be there.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is you're creating a community.
Yes.
In all of your contacts with them, from the assembly to all the relationships that you're building through some of those kids you've known for 3 years now, right? And you've seen so many changes. Without naming names, can you give us a couple of examples?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, this is what I love the most about my work, is the individual transformations. From a girl that was sexually assaulted by her biological dad and by her stepfather.
Wow.
She was self-medicating in the most destructive ways. Her mother didn't know where to reach out. Everyone she had reached out to, they can't take her. They've got a wait list.
Right.
And a friend of mine met her and told her about us. I started working with her daughter. Not only now is she sober, she doesn't do any kind of substances at all. We got her into intensive treatment for like 2 months in Atlanta, which is where she needed to go. So made her feel comfortable and not embarrassed to go do that. So she got to address those sexual trauma issues that she was dealing with. Then she comes back. Now she's part of a middle school where we are, and she actually participates as an ambassador to the younger kids, talking about her story and why they should follow that path, right? And so, and she called me the other day. She's like, I want to work with RIZE. Whatever you want me to do, that's my dream. That's what I want to do. And so now she's completely drug-free, and she's doing well in school. She believes in herself. She knows she's got worth. It's not defined by other people. It's defined by who created her, right?
And she has hope for the future, because I think that's the thing when you're stuck in addiction, or you're heading down that path, or you're stuck in your trauma. Maybe you haven't even gotten to the addiction part yet, but you're stuck in your trauma. The thing that disappears is the hope.
That's right. And so even with boys, it's the same thing.
Right.
So I've got a large team of student liaisons. We're all certified adolescent addiction motivation coaches. And so we pair up with the kids that we fit with as far as personality, culture, identification. And so we see a lot of these boys that come through, they don't know who they are. They don't know what they want to be. They don't have a dad in their life that's leading them. And one of our male mentors will go in there and coach them. One guy, completely sober, was using THC on the daily in alternative school. Now no longer in alternative school, is in normal school. He's got a career path now. He always comes back to thank us for what we've done for him. That's gold. Because that's one person now who's not going to hopefully overdose and be a statistic, but someone that's actually going to contribute to society. Because what these kids want to hear more than anything, and what we tell them, you are loved, you are valued, and you matter. Every single person on this planet is unique, right? There's nobody like you, right, Mary? There's nobody like you, nobody like me. And so if we're not contributing our purpose to this world, the world misses it. It matters. All of a sudden, you're not there doing what you're supposed to do. And when that clicks for these kids, and all of a sudden they believe they're worth something, everything opens up for them. And that's where we shift perspective to motivate intrinsically their choice to make great decisions.
So it's not don't do drugs, it's let's look at life this way.
100%. And that drugs and that behavior doesn't fit in with who you are. It's incompatible, and it's robbing you of your peace. And so once you tasted a little bit of peace and love, that's what you prefer.
And that's an addiction we don't really mind.
That's right.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about kind of the entrepreneurial side of this and the innovative side of this, because I'm sure when you went to potential funders to say, hey, this is the idea I have, and let me tell you, I've known Martine for 3 years now, and you are magnetic, and I'm sure everybody who sees this on YouTube can kind of feel that through the screen, and you can even hear it in your voice. But I'm still sure that some people said, yeah, no, I just don't think it's going to work.
Oh, many times, many times. And so I had to decide, am I going to believe that? Or am I going to believe me? Am I going to believe what I know is we're creating in these kids? I'm going to believe that. And I had to give it up to the will. Right? Of whatever is willed for this program, I'm okay with that, you know? And on top of that, I don't want somebody to where I'm going to have to fight for them to believe. I want someone who automatically connects, they understand, to where when they give us money and they donate, they do it with a smile on their face. And they're like, we can't wait to see what you can do. And also on top of that, it relieves me of a lot of stress, like, and disappointment, you know what I mean? So I don't have to, if you're not the right person for me, that's okay. Because there are plenty of other people who are compatible with what we're doing, who want to see, who want to support us, and that's totally fine. And on top of that, the failures that I've encountered, when I go back to people and I actually want to know, hey, why didn't you support me? They give me the best advice and the best feedback. This is the reason why we didn't.
That's a great way to
and
look at it.
so I go back and I'm like, okay, I'll make a correction. And then oftentimes they come back, eventually ended up supporting me. So I've seen that happen.
All right, I want to point that out again, just in case somebody kind of missed that. So when you feel like you have a failure with someone that you're soliciting from, you know, trying to get them to support you, you go back to them, and then you, in that conversation, learn something that that helps you hone in that message to really create what it needs to be for the next person.
That's correct.
And those people end up coming back. Those are called planting seeds, right? And learning as you go along. And all of us entrepreneurs kind of hopefully have that mindset where, okay, a no is not a no necessarily, right? A no may be a no for right now, or a no because of this. But once you figure that out, like you're doing, then it becomes a maybe, or then it becomes a yes. And so advice here is not to get discouraged by what appears to be the no.
That's right. And you know, and I believe in the the naturally amazing self-balancing of the universe. Okay, it's not some new age philosophy. I'm just trying to be very, very open about this. You don't want what's not meant for you. Don't go and fight for something that is not compatible with you at the moment, because it may bring you something that you really don't want, or push you on a path that is totally wrong for you. So let things happen naturally and trust that those things do. Right?
That's advice we can take into all aspects of our life. I don't know how many times my dad said to me growing up, you know what, there's a reason that didn't happen. I know you wanted it, but there's a reason that didn't happen, and you're going to be better off for it.
Absolutely. And do not be afraid of an open door. When a door opens for you, don't be afraid. Don't say, oh, I can't walk through it, and see what it has to offer you. Another piece of advice, just as an entrepreneur, that I would give to anyone is, before you go out and you present your product or your service to anyone, go ahead and answer all the questions that people will have.
Right.
Bring them solutions, right? You need to be solution minded. And that's how I built this program was, okay, I know I'm going to encounter a challenge here with the school. I know I'm going to encounter a challenge here with parents or whatever the case may be. So I did the research to back up why I do what I do. And I already went to the schools with the solutions for all the things that may have been barriers. I'm like, I already thought of it.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's monetary, whether it's scheduling time with students, whatever the case is, I am solution minded. And I encourage my employees to do that with me too. It's like, don't bring me a problem. Bring me a problem with a solution, right? To tell me how you figured it out.
I love that because most of us entrepreneurs, when we're creating our ventures, whatever they are, is we're trying to fix a problem, right? And those are the best ventures, the successful ones that actually fix the problem. So that is a great technique to just carry throughout, especially when you're going to ask for funding for whatever your venture is.
That's right.
I think I love that.
Right. And know who you're asking money from.
Yeah, do your research.
Do your research. Get to know who they are. What are they passionate about? You know, and then approach it from the angle that they care about. That is so, so important.
Yeah, great advice.
And don't ask for money on the first visit. Go have lunch with somebody. Go get to know who they are.
Exactly. That's great advice for students right now who are looking for jobs. As well. What do you think? What part of this has been the most difficult for you that you were like, maybe there's a point where you're like, gosh, maybe it's an inkling of doubt.
Getting people. Getting people to take me seriously. Especially in the world of nonprofits, people have been very disillusioned with just another feel-good program.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Or another drug program.
That's right. That's right. And that differentiation, that's what's been the hardest. And to actually walk into a room where people take me seriously and know that it's not just about feeling good. Yes, it is. Of course we want to. We want to create great things. But we've done all the back work to say we are actually research-based. We are evidence-based. We know what we're talking about. And then it was the first couple of schools, just getting the first couple of schools to believe in me. And then that was the hardest part. And so now, that was in the beginning. Now the hardest part is, now I'm growing exponentially, and now my budget is having to grow exponentially as well. So I'm now having to get to different funding sources.
Managing that growth in a way that you can sustain it and do what needs to be done. What are some of the goals that you have for RIZE? Because you're in all over the upstate right now. And so we're kind of geographically tied, but is that the vision, to stay here or to expand?
Oh no, go statewide.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to go statewide. I want to do that in partnership with the Department of Education, in partnership with our legislature, in partnership with universities, to expand our program and to have everybody pour into this to where South Carolina can be the anomaly when the next numbers are being taken in by the CDC, by the monitoring the youth futures survey, when it's the youth risk behavior survey. I want for South Carolina to be the anomaly in the data, and for them to ask, what is happening in South Carolina?
This just came to my mind. This could be the vaccine for this epidemic that we are in. And I know we use that word epidemic a lot since COVID, but it truly is. When you look at that number of the percentage increase of overdoses, that truly signifies to me, and just the numbers themselves that I just called out earlier in the show, that this is really an epidemic.
It is.
And this is the medicine for that.
It is. And it's the cure. It is the cure. It's relationship-based prevention. I would say relationship-based and purpose-driven. So look at these numbers. 3 out of 10 middle schoolers are using a substance by the time they're done with 8th grade. That number more than triples to 8 out of 10 in high school. So we're missing the boat. Why are we not either keeping it at 3 out of 10 or reducing it? That's what RIZE Prevention's goal is. We don't want to see 8 out of 10, because then in college, 9 out of 10. Because it's been normalized, and that we got to change that in our society.
And I will tell you that even the kids, and comes back from my days teaching high school, even the kids who you think are quote unquote good kids are testing the waters or have just dived right in.
Yeah, of course, because it's the condition of the human heart.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter your race or your gender or economic status. It is the state of the human heart.
Yeah.
And we all share the same desires.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, addiction is rooted in the need to be loved and valued.
Yeah.
And so that's where it is. And if we can give people an option by getting them to be self-aware, this is actually what you're doing,
Right.
there's the solution. And I'm going to give you another statistic.
Yeah.
Almost 70% of the American workforce has a substance use dependency.
That gave me goosebumps.
Isn't that crazy? Crazy.
Yeah.
Where people have to have a certain drink, drug, whatever it is, smoking breaks, whatever it is.
Right.
There's some sort of dependency on a substance.
Yeah.
And people are in our workforce.
So this has major economic impacts too, because if you are one of those people, then you're using company time to take all those smoke breaks, to do whatever it is that you're doing. It potentially makes you slower and not as on top of things. So we're making more mistakes in the areas, right? That we normally probably would not make. So that could have a huge economic impact as well. And not to, I mean, just medical, economic. You know, everything.
Would you like to go with me to the State House to talk to legislators about that? Because I'm trying to get that across. I'm like, listen, you're bringing all these industries into South Carolina. That's great. But what about your future workforce when teens are using at this rate? You know what I mean? You've got to be able to sustain that. What about all these homes that we're building? All these, you know what I'm saying? Where's all that money going to be coming from, right? When you have such an unstable society, right?
Well, and this is the thing too, because if the young folks who are falling into the addictions, they're not seeing the hope for the future. They're not getting an education, whether it's in the trades or college or university. So they're going to be, I mean, this is just the reality of the situation. They're going to be capped at what they can financially make.
That's right.
And that's going to keep them below the poverty level. And if that piece of information doesn't get legislators, then I don't know what will, quite honestly.
And even businesses, we're trying to get everybody in. And I say this, I say every single problem in our society, Mary, that we want to fix, it's all got one common denominator: drug use. Thefts, domestic violence, teen pregnancy, people not graduating. The most common denominator is drug use.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I did a program for the girls at DJJ a couple years ago, and I went in and talked to them about, motivational type thing, and talked to them and taught them yoga and how to meditate and how to just breathe through things, right? And one of them left with a business plan. When she wanted to be a tattoo artist. And so we lined out the steps for her to be able to eventually open up her own tattoo shop, apprentice first and get the education that you need and all of those things. But so I'm hoping that she did that, but in talking to them, I learned that every single one of them were there because they got into a relationship, got into drugs, or did something for their boyfriend that got them put there. Exactly. And it was all related to drugs, every single bit of it.
Yes, but look at what the impetus was, is that they were willing to compromise their safety and and themselves to be loved by someone else, to be adored, to be validated, to be accepted. That's the root of it, right? It makes us compromise because our identity is so misplaced. And if our identity is misplaced, so then is our purpose.
Say that one more time. I like that.
If our identity is misplaced, so then is our purpose.
I love it. I love it. So, I mean, we could sit here and talk all day about this because you're so motivational, but I do want to give you an opportunity to just kind of give our audience one other piece of anything that you've been thinking about in this conversation because you know how you do when you have a conversation and you're thinking, as you're talking, you're thinking, oh, and I want to say this at some point, and you don't get a chance to say that. I want to give you a chance to say that.
Thank you. Thank you. If I could say one thing to anybody out here who's listening, we all struggle. Not one of us has a perfect life. You are given opportunities day after day to decide that you are going to do things differently. If you keep doing what you're doing, you will keep getting what you're getting. And what you really need in this life is a righteous interruption. And I just started a podcast named Righteous Interruption that offers a lot of that motivation. But if I could say this, remember these two words. We've seen it, and I've seen it in my life. I see it in my work with RIZE Prevention. I see it with you. I see it with everyone. These two words are love wins.
Yes.
In every situation, love wins.
Absolutely.
And, just hold on to that. And if you don't have people around you in your life that love you,
Find people who do.
Find people who do. And if you can't, call us.
Yeah.
RIZE Prevention is always happy to do that.
Right.
And that's what I'd like to leave everybody with. Just remember that. Love wins.
Love wins. I love it. I love it. Speaking of getting in touch with RIZE Prevention, how do you want people to get in touch with you?
Well, we've got a website, rizeprevention.org, and it's spelled R-I-Z-E, rizeprevention.org. We're also on Facebook. We're on Instagram at RIZE Prevention, TikTok at RIZE Prevention. If you'd like to email us directly, you can email us at rizeteam@rizeprevention.org.
Yeah. And then the podcast.
Yes. So the podcast is Righteous Interruption. It is not connected to RIZE Prevention. It's just more of my own personal passion that I finally, and you also inspired me to do it. Just go do it.
Just do it.
So that podcast is on any platform. And then there's a website too. It's a very simple webpage that I keep all of the podcast episodes there. It's righteousinterruption.com.
All right. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Whew, Martine, thank you so much.
What a privilege. It's been an honor.
Yeah, for me. Thank you. Guys, I don't know about you, but this conversation has been powerful. And every time I talk to Martine, I get that feeling, right? That I'm motivated. My head is actually even dizzy right now just because I've gotten so many goosebumps during this conversation of aha things and things that I know that I can take into my own life that I know that many of you can as well. So Martine, I want to thank you for that because that's huge. Folks, that does it for this episode of the Class E podcast. I am your host, Mary Sturgill. Remember, this podcast is brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. I do have a few things I want to tell you about, though. We started a new segment called Quick Takes, and this segment is where our student producers go out into the field and they do a story on your small business, and we run it in each episode of the Class E podcast. So if you're interested in having your business kind of highlighted in that quick take, then you can email me at mary.sturgill@furman.edu, and I'll get you connected with our student producers, and you can coordinate with them to set up a time to come out and shoot that. We do shoot it via video because, of course, we have our YouTube channel too. So it'll run wherever you listen to your podcast and, of course, on our YouTube channel. The other thing that we're starting is that we're starting sponsorships. We've grown a lot in the past few years, and so we wanted to give you the opportunity to either sponsor a whole season or to sponsor an episode, and of course to get your business in the quick take. So if you're interested in a sponsorship of any kind, again, you can contact me at mary.sturgill@furman.edu, and you should be able to just, if you can't find that, then just Google Mary Sturgill Furman and it should absolutely pop up. But as you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to share with your friends and to subscribe so that we can spread all this good word that we're talking during the podcast all around the country, because Lord knows we need it. And of course, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcast. But until next time, everybody, dream big.